Namaste and welcome. I wanted to begin with a letter I got today, and it says Namaste. Guruji, thank you for guiding me and teaching me enough to even ask these questions. Question 1. So in the Buddhist pointing, you are not the birds flying through the sky. You are the sky with birds flying through it. Birds are thoughts, commentary, chatter, background, random ideas, songs running, etc. Sky equals the self. You, as well as Ramana, point to all sky, no birds. Correct, Guruji? And yes, that's correct. Now this pointing, you're not the birds flying through the sky, you are the sky with birds flying through it. Or you are the screen where all is projected on it. These pointings are to get one to a point of basically witness state or looking deeper. And when finally goes deeper and all falls away, then one finds the reality of all sky and no birds. But you can't just sit there and try to make that a mental fabrication and an intellectualization. So let's continue with this. Question 2, which is more of an observation too rather than a question. I don't really see the question in it too much. The mind does get quieter as Kundalini works. Practice is helping get out of the way of grace working, but the mind really doesn't become still completely. Abiding stillness happens not because the mind stills, but because the mind eventually, totally, completely blows out in nirvana. Awareness is completely freed. The abiding still happens, abiding meaning here no longer occluded, as still is always undisturbed. Because of the complete blowout, not really because of practices nor practicing non-attachment. Non-attachment isn't really in the end a practice. Non-attachment happens because of what attaches blows out and is no more. What attaches is mind. Mind is suffering. Nirvana completely blows out suffering as mind is no more. What remains is sky. Is this correct? Basically, that's correct. Some of that is, mind does start to still. Mind does enter moments of quiet. Okay. When the mind is still, it's no longer moving, and then as that happens, then eventually this identification, this meism breaks. And I mean totally breaks. And when it breaks, then this mind, rambling mind, doesn't rise any longer. It's nirvana, blown out, finished. Okay? So along the way, there are moments where the mind gets quiet, the mind becomes a little bit silent, it becomes more still, but eventually, in order for it to be full realization, it is as Ramana has directed time and time again, and as any in the full reality of realization will say, that the mind is absent. It's finished. It's just pure consciousness at that point. And the motion of mind, which is duality, and which is the creating of persona, is at an end. Okay? So these are steps along the way that take place in the journey. But yes, the ultimate goal of that is that one goes beyond mind, that it does get blown out, and then that is nirvana, and that is the liberated while in life. So I hope that helps answer that question. Okay, but like I said, while you understand that intellectually this is not an intellectual exercise, there is no real understanding of it until it totally falls away. So, again, between night and day of the different states. 'States. 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 ' folders here and see if I can find what the other questions were that were being asked. If I can find them. Oh, there it is. Okay. The question is Kundalini contagious? Apparently a readiness needs to be in place. Well, I don't know how much readiness is there for many people. One moment they're there and they have a longing for something, or they're engaging in energy modalities or a yoga class, and all of a sudden Kundalini awakens. Or you can be around others whose Kundalini is awoken. And like I said, this has happened to Sachi. She was married. Her husband had a Kundalini awakening. At the time they got married, I gave them the caution that this could indeed awaken her Kundalini through having the sexual contact and being around him all the time. And in fact, that happened. Okay, was she ready for it? Not necessarily, you know. And I think she's over there shaking her head. No, she wasn't ready for it. So it doesn't mean that a readiness needs to be in place. Okay, but yes, one can have an awakened Kundalini simply by being around others that are awakened, or being in that different situations that can spontaneously open that. Whether one feels ready for it or not is another matter entirely. Okay, so let's continue on here. I don't know if we did this one or not, effortless. Okay. I wonder if Guruji could comment on the use of harmonic type of recordings, such as Hemisync. On this path, I say please, please, please do not mix that with the practices here. I've had people that came and I've specifically told them, do not do this. They decided to do that, and then they wound up with psychotic breaks. And so do not mix energetic modalities. You're playing with fire and not good fire. So please leave those alone. Pick one or the other. If you really want to follow the path and you want to play with the hemisyncs and all of that, do it before you come to this path. And when you come to this path, if you decide to be here, please lay those aside, because the two are not really compatible. It can cause a meltdown, but not in a beneficial way. Okay. On Kriyas. What's coming up for me is that they've been coming up for 4 years with very few breaks. They're quite strong lately, and I'm very uncomfortable, painful. I do leave time for them, and they take all spare time. Path is first, so the time thing is okay, but is this supposed to hurt this much? There's been tastes of peace and quiet through my walk so far, but there is something wrong that this is painful so much of the time. Okay, well, it's painful if you start stressing about it, if you have a great resistance to it and you're not going in the flow of it and allowing it to do what it needs to do. So try to get the judgments about it out of the way. Try to get out of the reference, oh, this is painful, etc., and quit focusing on it, because the more you focus on it and say it's painful, the more you're going to simply engender that and give more reality to that and have it expand, you know. So let go of that dynamic and know that this is something transient, that one passes through, and just let it do what it needs to do. and you'll have a much better time of it than what you're having now. Okay. Can you please elaborate on the significance of the heart center and how it moves you forward? Okay. The heart center is where all begins and all ends. Even Ramana will tell you, even if the energy and people that want to say chakras goes up all the way through to the crown chakra and even above, it has to come back and reside in the heart chakra. Okay? All comes from heart. The first pulse comes from heart. Okay? One stays in the heart and submerges there, because this is the place of also love and devotion, etc., and where one would surrender into. So we don't want to be so much in the mind, but then again, we don't want to be in the heart and say, well, it's all emotions, because it's not, but you have to be willing to sit with the emotions of what comes up and look at things realistically without adding to or taking away from it. But this is the area or the mindset or the plexus where one would keep their focus. Okay. How to tell if Kundalini is really active? Several have asked if their Kundalini has awakened and or what are the signs, how to tell if it's just a pranic surge, etc. Also, can awakened Kundalini turn off due to stopping practices or be willed off in those who really don't feel ready or did not want it? Well, an awakened Kundalini is one that's going continually. You know, pranic surge means that you're sitting in meditation or you're going and you have a one-time event and then that's it. There's nothing. Okay. But an awakened Kundalini, you'll have ongoing things. Now, it may on occasion lay low and things may not be so huge and demonstrative, but things will be continuing to work under the surface and it will keep emerging time and time and time again. Okay? So that's an awakened Kundalini versus a pranic surge. People say, well, I can control Kundalini. If that's the case, they think they can control it, then it's not a Kundalini awakening. Then they've got a pranic stuff going on, and they've got a mental fabrication of experiences that are coming up. But in a truly awakened Kundalini, it's ongoing, day after day after day. Okay, we'll continue to bring experience after experience. We'll bring up the fears. We'll bring up all of this other stuff to be looked at. We'll challenge you on so many different levels. Okay. I don't know if we did these. These questions were from the 25th of November. Did we do these? Could Guruji elaborate on the difference between effortlessness and effort? Okay. And then when does effort become effortlessness? Well, it will seem like effort, you know, when one is sitting there and trying to go into recognizing that they are not the doer. One has to try, and how do I put this? This is a tough one to really address. Because when realization comes, one knows that it's all effortless. But when ego's in place, ego is this drive that wants to make it happen. And ego cannot make it happen. Ego can either choose to do the practices and get out of the way, or think that it's making things happen by its own steam, by virtue of doing this or doing that. Whereas when one goes into it and it's effortless, then one is putting it into practice but getting out of the way of claiming the fruits of their labors. Okay? So one doesn't claim the fruits of their labors when they're doing the practices, etc. Okay. And just quit striving so hard to make things happen. It's going to happen when the time is right. But just go forward with what needs to take place and leave it at that. Okay, question is, how do you deal with feeling others' emotions within yourself? Occasionally I feel emotions energetically when I'm in another's presence. How does one recognize whether emotion is felt as one's own or someone else's? And how does one recognize and deal with whether a thought seen is one's own or someone else's? Well, if you come into a situation and say you're really happy, then all of a sudden you get around somebody and the mood totally changes rapidly. And then you back away from them and the mood changes again, and then you come towards again that other person, and again it changes, and you know it's not yours. Okay? You're picking up on somebody else's. And this is again there to show you that it's all linked. You know, there is really no separation, and it's the human condition. Okay, it gives you an insight to see that you're not the only one that has these types of feelings or these types of experiences, etc. So just recognize it for what it is. Don't buy into it. Don't take it on. Don't fear it. Don't run from it. Just see it and say, okay, this is part of the human experience. Okay. How should one raise a child? How does ego get in the way? One raises a child to the best of their ability. You give them whatever you can to serve them well in life. Now, how does ego get in the way? Again, people use ego in a totally different way than ego is used here. Here, ego means, when I use the term ego, it means that you think you are this body-mind complex. That's ego. I'm not using it in the sense of egotistical or my way above your way, whatever. It has nothing to do with that here. Okay, if you're in the experience, in the mindset of duality, then recognize that's where you are, in that feeling of separation. And so if you're in that, you know, you can't rationalize things away into a non-dual intellectualism. It just doesn't work. So while you're in the mind of duality, you give the very best you can give for somebody to have a beneficial experience in the realm of duality. That's all. That's all. Give the highest and the best you can give. And as the further you go on the path, the more your wisdom will change, the more you will have to give. So you give, that's all that can be said. Give the best you can give. Give the most knowledge that you have. Okay, from the core of being. That's all that can be said. You can't manufacture something you don't have. So that's all. That's all. You watch that being and you give the best you can give. And there are many things from the path that can be given to young children. How to live with honesty, integrity, transparency. Now, if you give them that foundation and they understand that foundation, what more can you give them in life? That's a really good start. Okay? So begin with that way. Honesty, teach them how to live in honesty, integrity, and transparency. Okay? If they have to manufacture some lie, then it's going to come back to haunt them. If you live honestly and with integrity and transparency, one doesn't need to lie. One doesn't need to manufacture. One doesn't need to put on top of or take away. Teach them to learn to sit and look at a situation without just going off in this grand reaction and buying into that and think I need to soothe and pamper. Because when you do that, what you're teaching them is great. Every time you have a reaction, you're going to soothe and pamper. So if I want to get soothed and pampered, just have more and more of a reaction. And then what you get is a child with a lot of tantrums, okay? So we don't reward this negative behavior. That's not the reward. You don't soothe and pamper them with negative behavior. Okay. So again, just takes pointings from the path as much as you understand, and you start bringing it into your instruction and the way that you work with your children. That's all. Okay. In one audio satsang, Guruji talks about breathing into and out of the heart center. Could Guruji talk more about that? Well, mostly what I'm saying is just have your consciousness and your attention in the heart center. You can balance your breath and then draw your attention to the heart center. Okay, you don't keep your attention fully here for all day. Once it's balanced and you see it's balanced, the attention resides back in the heart center. And that's all. In one of the videos, Guruji mentioned that scientists manifest what they want to see as their results. Is this true? Are there no laws of the universe as such to be discovered? Well, I think that's a big law that's discovered. Quantum was a big law to be discovered. That the mind is duality. Like the Bible says rightly, the Word was with God and the Word was God. The Word being that creative essence, okay? And that's the creative essence, and it is duality. When mind rises and it moves, that is duality and the creation of object, subject, object experience. Okay? So being that this world is based on subject-object experience, these things will change as the dynamic of mankind changes. That's all. That's all. So within the transient realm, it's always changing. Things will always be changing, new things to explore and to gravitate to. But when one goes to realization and all of that falls away, there is no moving mind any longer, and all of that becomes moot. Okay? All of that becomes moot at that point. But as long as you're in duality, and the mind is moving, in motion, in creating, creator, creating, etc., then there will be always something new to learn. And yes, the laws of the universe can change. Motion, all transient, all transient. What's not transient is that unchanging is, okay? That's prior to the motion, so. But again, this has to be discovered and has to be a direct experience of what it is. We often see holy trinities in different religions. Christianity has Father, Son, and Holy Ghost. In Hinduism, we have Brahma, Vishnu, and Maheshwara. What is the meaning behind it? Very simple. It's creation, sustaining, and destruction. Okay, that's all. Very simple. It's the movement of the life cycle and the transient. That's all that it's pointing to. So, what can one say? Things come into creation and then they're sustained for a point, and then they break down and go into a new creation. Okay? So that's where that's at. Very simply, we'll put it in there as simple as possible. So let me see what we've got here. We're going through these pretty quick today. Okay, this one I think we've done already. Someone was also asking for if I could do the Tripura Rahasya chapter by chapter to explain it. Well, really, it's pretty straightforward. I mean, it's the text of a woman that's wanting to get her husband to realization, and then once realization takes place, it really is talking about the states of, and why I have people read it is more to understand the states of realization, what happens, what's the difference, that there can be depths to realization. One can have a glimpse, can be in oneness, can hold it with effort. And if you watch the new video where I'm talking with Sage Sarojini about that, because she's got the last of these threads of mind being cut, and there's a difference when one is like spinning on the wheel and you're still on the wheel of oneness and you're looking towards the absolute, you're holding it with effort. Then when you go into that absolute directly, fully, and the mind rises no more, one is not looking towards realization or the absolute. It is all it is. It's ever present, nothing there to occlude it. There is no movement of mind there to occlude anything that one needs to grasp onto to hold. It's at that point effortless. And so this is what the Tripura Rahasya talks about, the levels, that there can be one that says that they are a realized being, and yes, they've seen it, they can speak of it. Okay, but there is no liberation for that one in life. They are not liberated until death. Because they've seen it, then they go back into the suffering. And you see a lot of teachers that get to oneness, and again, they can talk about things, and they think that that's it. And then they say, well, then you have to come back and work on yourself. Well, there is no self to work on when it's full realization. There's a self to be worked on when one is still in mind and is in oneness, and there is, there's an absorption of the world in that. But there's still two. Okay, it seems like there's only one, but there's still that subtle ego, that spiritualized ego, which is still in place. Then there is the one, the best, where you're fully functional in the world, and the mind is stilled, and you're quite fine. I mean, you come back into the world and you're quite functional. And then there's the other one, which stays sitting, more in meditation states, and they're not functional in the world, okay? And they can be sitting in this nirvikalpa samadhi, but then when they come out of the meditation state, they're right back in the mix again, So one, to be fully realized, one has to get to the nirvikalpa sahaj, which is effortless, where there is no more mind that rises to occlude it. It doesn't mean that I'm not attached to mind. Mind is there, but I'm not attached to it. That's holding it with effort. That is holding to realization with effort. So there's a distinct difference between the two. As far as the experience of it, oneness is far from the totally occluded mind and feels extremely expanded, and yet beyond that oneness is full realization, which is again between night and day, one state to the other, because now there's no mind. It's not a mental state anymore. It just simply is what is. So, I'm trying to open the last, but to see if I've answered all the questions that have come in. Did you have any questions while you're sitting there? Because this is still downloading.
You had mentioned earlier about trauma,
Mm-hmm.
and in the counseling field that I'm in, they talk a lot about the trauma. What's a good way to tell clients about how to move past trauma?
About how to what?
Move beyond trauma in their past.
How to move beyond trauma? Well, first of all, you have to stop and actually be willing to look at it. And like stated, you have to come to a point of having compassion and empathy for the ones that created that trauma in the life. Okay, for one, to see that they only gave from what they had to give. They were dealing with their own demons, whatever, or they're in a hell realm mind and they're stuck there, whereas you have a chance to move forward out of it. Okay? Because as long as you're playing the blame game, you're not going to move forward. Okay? So you have to get off the blame game thing. Recognize this trauma was an event in time. In this moment, you're totally fine. It's not actually still going on. Yes, there are memories of it. There are things that are driving the mind with it. But you have to finally stop buying into that and see, actually, in this moment, I'm fine. So when the trauma starts coming up again, one looks and recognizes, no, in this moment, I'm fine. But be willing to sit with those feelings and see them for what they are. Okay? How did they arise? Do I have to really buy into this? Was it a mental afflicted trauma or was it a physical trauma? What was actually, happening during that time, and then look deeper, not just try to run away with it or play the blame game or distance from it. One has to sit, and then that reality will break. So that takes some time, there's not a one quick, there are some people that are doing some work in that area and they switch it around to where you have a better storyline. Well, okay, that's going to work to relieve it for some time, but you really have to get to the bottom of it to where it finally disbands totally. Yeah. Let's see. I think this one was answered. Is it okay to meditate while listening to music? Yeah, I think we did this. I think this one I answered about how you can know a teacher and there's no litmus test for it. But like I just said on the recent video where I was talking about the Nityananda scandal, that if a teacher is there and you recognize there are sexual improprieties going on, run. If they're not walking their talk, run. Okay? If they're charging a lot of money and promising something that can't be given, like enlightenment in a certain amount of days, run. Okay? Just to have some discernment. Build up some discernment. Look for these key elements. Are they genuine? Are they speaking from a place of direct experience, or are they speaking from a lot of texts, a lot of books, a lot of, intellectual knowledge, but their lifestyle is not following through on as what they're saying? So these are hallmarks to look for when one is trying to figure out if a teacher is genuine or not, Okay. Can you explain how does one choose a path? Can a path serve a purpose to a sadhaka other than what it professes? What about atheists, especially in this age where religions are really twisted? Well, what is it you're looking for from a path? Number one, what is it, you know, you have to really get honest with what it is you're looking for. Are you looking to get to realization? Are you ready to have the ego torn apart, this feeling of being body-mind, you know, with its story? Are you ready to have all of that at an end? Because realization takes full commitment, full attention. Are you looking to have family, relationship, you know? Are you looking to better your life? If you're looking just to better your life, then okay, pick something that doesn't go fully forward to realization. You know, there are a lot of teachers out there, and that are giving more of, you know, bettering your story, getting you a little more grounded, a little more centered, a little more forward motion, a little more belief in yourself, you know, a little more towards that new age thing, a little more towards the psychological thing. So you just really need to be honest with what you're looking for and what you're not looking for, you know. I just got a book that was really kind of funny, and I can't, what was the name of it? Something the Universe. What was that called? It's in my bedroom by the desk. It's got this thing on it. And it's a guy that went forward to realization, and he put out this book, and it wasn't anything what he thought it was going to be, and he talks about the great terror, and, you know, everything in your world is tore apart, and, you know, you think you're going to get something, and you get nothing, and, you know, all the abject fear that comes up and everything. And so he wrote the book, and it's kind of like humorous for those that have made the path. For those that haven't done the full walk yet, it's I think he hopes that it's going to move people forward, but I don't really see it moving people forward. It just says, you know, if you value your life the way it is now, don't begin this journey, you know. So it's kind of the warning thing, you know, because it's not going to be this cushy thing that you think it's going to be. It's not going to be this light-hearted thing. It's not going to be full of fluffies and all of that. It's going to tear everything apart that you have. Okay. But for those of us that have made the journey, we go, yeah. And he gets to the end and says, but you wouldn't trade it for anything. Okay, so anyway, that's the point being, look a little deeper before just jumping into something, and talk with the teacher involved in the path that you're going into. How much direct interaction is there with the teacher? What are the tools given? What are the tools needed? And those are some different things to look at as well. You know, every teacher is different, every guru is different. Just because they say they're a guru or a teacher doesn't mean that they're teaching in the same style or have the same knowledge or whatever. So just have a little more discernment, look a little deeper into what is there, talk with the students, and just see, just see. That's all. And when you see improprieties and things, just because it hasn't happened to you, have a little heads up and maybe be willing to look a little deeper. Because we don't want to see any more people get caught with these so-called gurus that are, you know, there's a lot of psychopaths out there. There's a lot of psychopathological personas out there that will actually believe what they're saying 100%, but they have no empathy, no compassion, no, just absolutely are devoid and bankrupt within. And unfortunately, they can be very magnetic, very magnetic, and draw people in. And don't confuse this magnetism with knowledge, okay? Don't confuse powers with knowledge. There's a lot of confusion, I think, out there as to what constitutes a genuine teacher and what they will have and what they won't have if they're a genuine Paramahansa or a realized being. So just have a little bit more discernment and caution, and keep your eyes open, your ears open, and go forward. And so thank you for the satsang questions. If I've missed one of your questions, please resend it in. I didn't mean to miss it or bypass it. Some things come in and then they get kind of lost sometimes in the shuffle. So thank you. Namaste. And have a wonderful holiday season. This is almost Christmas. So enjoy your time with your families and enjoy the holidays. And I look forward to seeing you all soon. So, namaste. Happy holidays.